Good morning, Matt.
Rick, happy New Year for reals.
I know, likewise. Happy 2022. And I guess this will be coming out next week. So if you're listening, we're a little late on the uptake. But hey, that's the way we are around here.
We don't rush. Live podcasts? Just like literally just
streaming it live? No, I think
might be the
based on the massive fan base we have, I think just the influx of questions and the fact that people could clip it and then put it on their YouTube channel to get more views. I just think it's risky, it's just based on the amount of listeners and viewers that we have. I just think it would be, an iffy proposition.
Well, I got to tell you, I think our viewership's going to go crazy high with all the new short video clips you're making, dude.
Yeah,
things are great.
The trainers in cars.
Yeah.
Trainers talking in cars.
I like them.
Check me out on Instagram for my random parking lot thoughts. Of which I have many, by the way. Most are crazy. Speaking of crazy, I was listening to last week's podcast because I like to go back and make sure that we didn't say something that can get us in big trouble, which would be likely based on you and I and our normal conversations.
Yeah.
And the first few minutes were all about butt cheeks. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, your terrible dad joke. Thank you for that.
Well,
Wait, you got one today?
No, dude, poop jokes, I'd have to say, are not my favorite. But they're a solid number 2. Yes, I got them, folks. 2 for 2. Didn't even see that one coming.
This is terrible.
Didn't even see that one coming. All right, folks. Well, let's get down to to business, as we say. So today I'm gonna interview Matt. I actually enjoyed that format last week, and I think he's just had so much practical in the trenches experience that it's nice to bounce ideas off of him. In a lot of ways, he articulates what I'm trying to say better than I do because I just talk all around it. He gets right to the point, and I really like that. So today, Matt, I want to just kick around some ideas and your thoughts on what makes a great alloy coach. And I guess you could say any coach in any business. So when I say coach, I mean, not necessarily a coach of a football team. I think some of the similar attributes, but more so what makes a good personal trainer or fitness coach, right?
Yeah, with what? Just general population, just normal everyday.
Yeah, and I
right?
think just overall. So we'll start with, I'll break it down into 3 different categories, and then we'll just discuss those 3. So first of all, it's physical traits. So what do you think, are there certain physical traits or are there certain physical attributes that would make someone a better fitness coach?
Well, definitely, again, in our setting and who we're working with, I actually learned this from you years and years and years and years ago. You don't want to get people that are just so physically intimidating that it scares the crap out of the clients, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's probably why I got the job.
If we're honest, that's the only reason Matt got the job, and it panned out pretty well.
You don't know anything,
right?
But you won't scare the crap out of the clients.
Well, you're not real fit, so yeah, you'll do.
Right.
But no, I mean, all kidding aside, I didn't think that you were going to go there, but that's a great point is, if you are a massive rocked up bodybuilder, right? Or if you are a fitness competitor, you certainly have a passion for fitness, and that could manifest itself in a good way. But if you're not cognizant of that, it could also scare people to death. Like imagine sitting down across, sitting face to face in a small office setting or across a desk or whatever those things are with someone who is, overweight, hasn't worked out in 20 years, is somewhat intimidated or doesn't appreciate the regular, air quotes, gym environment. And then you're sitting there with veins popping out everywhere. You're just this massive hulking person, right? It's probably going to be a tough sell because they're going to think, okay, this person doesn't understand me, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, in a lot of ways, you look kind of silly, to them, and they are afraid of your prescription. Even if your prescription is on point, it might give them the idea that you're trying to push them into something that's too extreme. And we all know, if you're in the industry, you'll laugh at this, and you will too, as Matt. Like you might have, let's say it's a male, and it is a bodybuilder who's really built, and maybe we can even talk about dress. They're dressed inappropriately, so they're wearing a tank top. Like we don't allow that, right? We don't allow sleeveless shirts in the gym. Why? Because I don't want our clients coming in and heaven forbid, one of our coaches is in great shape, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to be standing out there in a string tank top, just intimidating folks, male or female. And so, if that person was sitting there and they were scantily clad and they're all rocked up, in a laughable way, some clients might think, well, I don't want to look like that person.
Right.
Right. So I don't want to do this program. which you and I both know, like, okay, it's not like you're accidentally going to get in too good a shape. But there's
some people think that.
They do. They're like, I don't want to get too big or I don't want to get too ripped. I just want to lose 25 pounds and look like this. And they'll show you like a magazine model where you're like, that person works out insane amount of time to be that way.
I mean, I legit had a client come in and, I'm in good shape. I can do everything I want to do, right? I'm basically one of our clients. But this client literally goes to me, and this is when Joe was here, and Joe's really good shape, and he's really rocked up, and he goes, I don't want to look like that guy. I want to look like you. And I was like, I don't know how to take that. Like, I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment.
I don't want to be in shape like that guy. I'd rather look like you. Yeah. That's a doable. Listen, it's a compliment ultimately, because what they're saying is I still have to play golf and put on a business suit and whatever. And I don't think I want to look like that. And they might even be thinking of it through the lens of like, what kind of work are you going to ask me to put in? Because if you're trying to get me to that level, that's just as a heads up, that's absolutely unnecessary, because I wouldn't choose that anyway, right? So if you are that person, or if you own an alloy or a fitness-based business where you're doing an induction process, we call it the starting point session, make sure the person in that seat, if they are overly developed and fit, that they dress appropriately, because you can de-emphasize some of that intimidation by not wearing tank tops and booty shorts and all the other things that come along with it. So just keep that in mind. If your customer avatar is similar to ours, which is folks that just want to move the needle, be fit, live life to the fullest, they don't necessarily want to compete in a bodybuilding competition or a fitness competition. So keep that in mind and make sure that your people are presenting themselves, because let's face it, it's a visceral response. It's important that they're dressed appropriately to address that customer. So what about on the other end of the spectrum, Matt?
So because what you really wanted me to anscer?
What's that?
I went the other way with it, didn't I?
Well, actually, that's great, because I wasn't even thinking of that. I really just want dialogue from you. That's all. So if you say the other end of the spectrum, because I get this a lot from candidates where they'll say, well, they don't feel confident in the way they look or feel.
Right.
And so they don't feel like they can own a personal training brand because they don't fit the mold. And again, I'm air quoting, but what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I don't think that's the way people perceive, us when they come in anyway. I think it's more of like, yes, you want to be in good shape, but it's really like that you're dedicated to the journey and then you can relate to them. So I think people that maybe not where they want to be really, really will still be able to help people, and people will buy into it with them really well, honestly, right?
Yeah, and I think the word that you mentioned that we've talked about before is journey, where if you're, say that you've been 50 pounds in your mind overweight and you're 25 pounds on the way there, you're going to have so much more in common with the people that you're sitting down with than the person who's always worked out or is genetically blessed or gifted, right?
Sure.
Both people can work around it.
Absolutely.
But I think you're a lot more believable if you sit in that seat and you're having these conversations. And remember, in a personal training brand, as Matt will tell you and has told you on other podcasts, we're really peeling that onion. And so when you understand the psychology and the pain points that person sitting in the seat across from you has, and you're able to relate to that and be able to draw that common ground and say, yes, I understand, I was there. And then you can speak to your solution, what it's done for you personally. I don't think there's anything more powerful than that. Nope. What about you?
Well, I mean, that's why you see all people all over Instagram and social media and sharing their journey and people buying into whatever they're selling. I mean, it's very impactful. It's huge.
And if you look at that, I mean, just from a social influencer standpoint, some of the most impactful people are people that aren't necessarily the most buff and fit. They're like the real people that are on a real journey, and you can see that even through social media. It's easy to detect that, and people are drawn to it because, trust and
you believe
and being genuine. Yeah, they're 100% believable. So for anybody listening that doesn't feel like they're as fit as they need to be, listen, if you're training people for bodybuilding competitions, yeah, it's probably not a good fit. But if you're training 45 to 65-year-old folks that are trying to live a better life, move better and whatnot, and you're in that same boat with them on that journey, you're a perfect fit. So don't let the fact that you're not, in air quotes, perfect. And by the way, that's a moving target. Even when you get there, it's a little bit like business success. Even when you get there, it's anticlimactic. You're never really there. Sure. You're never good enough. So just keep that in mind. As long as you're on a journey and you're trying, you're going to have a lot more in common with those clients, and you're going to do great. And I think in some ways, if you're that person who's fallen on and off the wagon, as we all do at times, part of buying into at least an alloy franchise is you're now putting yourself in a seat that comes with some accountability. So let's say you were, as a side note, like the last tipping point in making a decision on whether or not you wanted to get into an Alloy personal training franchise. One of the real benefits, if you're that person that's had a fitness journey that struggles, is when you're now that person, it's going to be much more compelling and easy for you to stay on track when you're doing it for a higher purpose other than your own, which means if I can lead my flock by leading by example and showing them and documenting the struggle and talking to them about these things on a daily basis, it's very powerful. So from a self-serving standpoint, if you want to keep yourself in shape and you're that person, keep in mind, if you are the operator and you're around this brand, you're going to be more compelled to stay in good shape. So it's yet another reason to look into it.
Yeah,
that makes sense?
Yeah, great.
I mean, you're not going to buy a business opportunity just to keep yourself in shape, but it's certainly not a bad side perk.
It's the only way I'm going to the gym. I'm going to buy a gym.
I want to start working out. I need to buy a franchise so I can actually make myself work out. What about energy? Like what kind of, I say energy, that's kind of a, not like a crystals kind of thing, but maybe like what kind of aura or energy does this person need to put off, do you think, to be successful?
Well, they definitely need to have energy. I mean, it's, if you typical folks coming to the gym, a lot of them, the last thing they want to do is come into the gym. So you definitely can't meet them at their level or be below it. You do have to raise the bar. I will say that what we do and what makes it just, great to be a coach of Alloy is it's not one of those hoorah, pumping music where you got to be screaming loud. So I call it I forget what my term was. Dang it.
Do you have a term for that?
I did.
Oh, that's good. Well, we maybe think of it as we're talking.
Later. But yeah, I mean, you got to have some juice. You got to bring up the level, but we're not, dance instructors and anything like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the
term in a minute.
Yeah. You think on that for a sec.
Excited casual. That's what it was.
Excited. That's not even a term.
Yeah,
I can't believe I waited for that.
I coined that. That's great.
I coined that. Put that on a t-shirt. I'm excited, but also casual.
Well, it is. But personal training.
Well, I think it's actually a pretty descriptive term of what we need because we're not wearing a headset, pumping high music. Like a lot of the fitness franchises that are class-based concepts, which we're not, are based on purely entertainment value. I want to be a DJ or I want to be a dance star, so I'm going to teach here, put this headset on. And if you're not careful, and like in the old days of sort of the aerobics instructor, it can become very instructor centric, right? It's all about them and the show and the music, and it's not so much about the client as it is about what kind of show they can put on and kind of what feedback they get from the crowd, right? And that's not really what we're trying to do. So yes, you can have a lot of energy, but that energy has to be directed in a way that's solely focused on the clients and not necessarily your dance moves, right?
Excited casual. It's growing on you. I can see. He'll steal that. He will say this somewhere to somebody else.
Somehow this is going to be in our manual. I can feel it. So I'm in this, Rick, I need to talk to you. I'm in this excited casual phase of the platform. I want to talk to you about that. I'm like, what? Okay. So great energy. Yeah, but not necessarily rock star energy. Or if you have it, temper it, right? Because anybody can dig it out when they need to. Keep in mind also, this is a side note, and you know this because we used to coach class-based concepts when we were building them for big gyms, right? We had to practice them, so we would run them. And the type of individual that would coach both is drastically different. There was a rare bird that could coach a group training session with, the right energy that it needed, and then switch gears and coach personal training. Yeah. Right? Because then some were really good. Some of the more introverted coaches that we had that were very technically savvy were great in the personal training setting and really struggled in the class-based setting. Yep. And if you were a Dance Revolution type of instructor, then when you came to personal training, sometimes you were so distracted it was hard for you to focus on the people standing in front of you.
Why are you yelling at me?
Right. Yeah, I'm right here, bro. No music's turned up. So keep that in mind. It's okay in this setting, if you're a personal trainer, to be a little bit more introverted. Now you can't be socially awkward, obviously, but if you're somewhat introverted, you can still make it work, right? Because it's a more intimate environment, so you don't have to stand up there and pump up the jams.
You got to be excited that they're there and motivate them, but also have casual conversations.
Oh, here we go. The casual excited thing. Whatever. I don't even know the term. It's just laying claim. I invented that. In 30 years, he'll be telling you he invented all fitness things. What about psychological traits? So what type of, how does someone need to be well sorted? Are there certain things? Okay, so I'll give you an example, like punctuality. Like you have to be on time. You're being paid for time. You have to be on time. So, okay, check. So that would say you might want to be, this person needs to be somewhat organized, right? But is there any other like psychological or personality traits that lend themselves to behavior that you think someone needs to be successful?
Behavior wise, well, I mean, the biggest things that we look for is this, they're, yes, punctual, they're very attentive, they look the part, they're, organized, they really show an interest in all the, other people and things around them. It's not about them. I mean, I literally just had an interview the other day, which was great. And this guy was just, I was like, well, he worked at Lifetime, or he works at Lifetime. And I was like, hey, why do you want to do this job? And he's like, well, all we do over here is it's all about sales. And I was like, I just want to help people. And I was kind of like taken back because you don't usually hear that. And I was like, man, that ding, 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 that's a winner right there. If you have a true interest in others, and that's where, you're going to be a winner right away.
Yep. So, I mean, again, psychological traits. It's also, I think, about a little bit of mental toughness, because by default, now that you're in this seat, you are a coach, right?
Yeah.
And a coach comes with a certain level of responsibility. And what that means is, you have to be able to hold people accountable to goals and to doing hard things. It helps if you can do those things as well.
Sure.
But if you're going to say to someone, listen, I really want to see you walking 3 days a week for 30 minutes outside of the work that we're doing here. That's where we're going to start. You have to be able to then hold them accountable to that goal. And it's a positive. It's not like a very difficult thing, and it's not like they're in trouble. But in the nature of the coach-client relationship, you do have to have some leadership qualities. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all selling something, right? So, I mean, I get that part. But yeah, mental toughness and being able to keep at somebody and day in, day out. I mean, it definitely is a trait.
Yeah. I mean, one of our core values is bring your A game. And another way to say that would be leave your troubles at the door. And so if you're someone who is not well sorted emotionally, and you have a lot of things going on in your personal life, and you can't leave those things at the door, and you bring them into the sessions, even if you're other things like if you're more apt to gossip or, lean into client problems in a toxic way, that can also be troublesome, right? So it's like you just need to be well sorted emotionally as well. And I mean, part of it, like you could be a complete mess outside the gym. I mean, but part of it, and you understand this, is if you can just be mentally tough enough to leave your problems at the door. I mean, always bring your A game. That is somewhat therapeutic. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
I can remember doing, 6-hour shift in the morning, 4-hour shift in the evening when I first opened the business in 92. And there were days when I would have personal problems, but if I could just leave those at the door and focus on the person in front of me, I would actually do myself a huge favor. I would come out of that shift or that day much better than I went into it. And my problems weren't as much of a problem if I found that my outlet was helping others. And I think that's something in basic psychology, is like if you're feeling down and out and the world's against you, the best thing to do for yourself psychologically is to go and help someone else.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. That'll lift you up higher than anything you could do for yourself. And so in a lot of ways, this is a very similar position, but it does require enough self-awareness and, again, humility, whatever that may be, to leave your problems at the door and just focus on the people in front of you and try to bring your best to them, make this the best part of their day. And then just as a heads up, if you can do so, by default, it's also going to benefit you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the mental toughness also, I mean, just another thing to look for is those folks that just want to do a good job and then will go out of their way to find other ways to, improve. They're not waiting on you to tell them what to do. It's the real type A go-getters kind of folks, right?
Yep, 100%. And then lastly, I think, what do you think the main driving force? We touched on this a bunch of ways. I already
said it, didn't I?
Maybe, but I mean, reiterate it. So what is, like you mentioned the young man you talked to the other day, but what do you think is the most important driving force, the biggest why for being a successful coach?
True interest in others.
Yeah.
Really, you're here to help the clients. If you put that above all else, I mean, this pretty much goes to every business. I mean, especially customer service business. But if that's the first thing you focus on, the only thing, everything else just falls into place, right? I mean, does it not?
It does. It's like the Warren Buffett video that we watched, and he's talked about enterprise, rental car, and the furniture store, and some of the things they've invested in that were old companies. And the reason that they succeeded, and remember, these companies that he was using examples were entering spaces where there wasn't seemingly a much market share left to be gathered. Right? It was like they were pretty busy verticals, but they would jump in there, and their only real strategic advantage was amazing customer service. And he's like, I've never seen a company that was, emphatically and fanatically, focused on the customer lose ever. Never seen it. So I think when you're looking for a coach, that has to be their main motivation, is they want to help people. Fitness is a great vehicle to be able to do that. Now, within that, you could break that down. And we've talked on other podcasts about not falling in love necessarily with the process as much as the outcome, meaning like, I just want to help people. Alloy is providing an amazing vehicle, programming, all those things that will produce the right outcome. So if you just run the play and your passion is just about helping, that's great. Where you might run into trouble, and I'm just saying this to any folks that might be interviewing coaches or evaluating your current team, is if the trainer comes to the table and the love and the passion is not necessarily for helping people, but it's the mechanism or the method that they're helping people. Like, again, I love blank kettlebells. So I only want to teach people kettlebells because I love kettlebells. That's not having an overwhelming passion for helping the person in front of you, right? That's loving this tool and this thing that you think is really cool, and then you want to take that thing to the world. And if you run into someone who doesn't love the tool, they're just more interested in the outcome, which by heads up, most clients are. They don't care how they get there as long as they don't get hurt and they get where they're supposed to be. That's where the real passion has to lie. And so ultimately, that's where I was getting to. You kind of touched on it earlier, but that's
crazy
good.
There.
I think
I was still excited about my excited casual.
You just can't get over the excited casual. Just keep that in mind. It's almost like a way to dress. Like, hey, we're having a Christmas party. What's the dress this year, Matt? He's like, excited casual. So I'm like, what does that mean? Like a sparkly bow tie with a tank top? I mean, what are we doing here, right? So yeah, it's a style of dress, and it's apparently a whole personality trait that Matt actually exhibits. This. He embodies excited casual.
Dude, that's gonna be on bumper stickers.
Shit happens. Well, I think maybe the last question that I have, and it's just an interesting thought that I've processed as we're processing all these things. I'm like, all right, so we're talking about a pretty dynamic person, right? They have to be emotionally well sorted. They have to be at least on a health journey of some sort. They have to understand that they are a leader, and they have to own that and what that means and hold people accountable. They have to be mentally tough and able to leave their problems at the door and focus on others. And then they have to have this true passion for helping. If you took someone who was good looking, high emotional intelligence, organized, why would that person want to be a fitness coach and not do something else?
Because they like to help people.
God. Well, I mean, I think it's a fair question, because you would say, well, gosh, that sounds like a person who could do whatever in the world it is that they want to do, right? But to your point, I think in this business, you just said it, they want to help people, and it's not hard for people to make the leap between, what I want to help people. I have skills, I have leadership, I want to, have a positive influence on people's lives. It's not a stretch to understand that fitness, certainly personal training, is the ideal vehicle to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard you say it's work that's meaningful. I mean, can't really sum it up any better than that, right?
Yeah, I can remember having an epiphany maybe my second year in business. It's like 94, and I'm thinking, this is the coolest job ever, because I had someone in tears because they had, reached some physical milestone and they'd never been able to get there. And it was, and they paying me handsomely to do it, right? So I'm doing what to me seems like the most fun thing in the world. Like, it's literally not work. Mm-hmm. Like, I would hang out and talk to people and hang around the fitness gym sort of scene. I've been doing it my whole life already, right? Mm-hmm. And so here I am, 24 years old, talking to this individual in front of me, and they're in tears about all the help that I've done and the things I've done for them. And they've paid me handsomely to do it. And it really hit me like, this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to get paid to do something that doesn't feel like work, that comes second nature. I want to make a positive impact on people's lives. And there's no better way to do it than to see the person standing right in front of you in tears based on what they've accomplished. And I want to get paid well to do it, right? Can I put all that together? And I've been really fortunate to be able to do that, as of you and a lot of other people here. But I think that's why you're going to get that dynamic person, because they're going to understand that this is an amazing vehicle and they want to be that person in someone's life. And by the way, they can make pretty decent money doing it too.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Great stuff. I appreciate it. Hey, and thanks for the new term. I really think it's going to catch on.
I've said it so many times now. You're not going to forget it.
Yeah. Like, make that a hashtag, you guys, for Matt. He would really appreciate that. All right. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.